A massive rock formation? A Massachusetts psychosis? No, a mass formation psychosis is the term that Robert Malone, MD, used on the Joe Rogan Experience to describe what's been happening in the U.S. in recent years. So was this a reasonable mass assertion? In a way, perhaps. But maybe not in the way that Malone had intended. Malone, who has listed himself as the inventor of mRNA vaccines and DNA vaccines on his LinkedIn account, appeared on Joe Rogan's Spotify podcast shortly after being permanently booted from Twitter last week. On the podcast, Malone began talking about his background and then COVID-19 vaccines before segueing to Nazi Germany. Because who doesn't talk about Nazi Germany when talking about COVID-19 these days, right? Malone began this part of the conversation by asking Rogan, what the heck happened to Germany in the 20s and 30s? Very intelligent, highly educated population, and they went barking mad. And how did that happen? Since this wasn't an episode of the TV show Jeopardy, Malone quickly answered his own question with, the answer is mass formation psychosis. Malone continued with, when you have a society that has become decoupled from each other and has free-floating anxiety in a sense d.h. Malone then described how leaders can exploit this situation, and one of the aspects of that phenomenon is that the people that they identify as their leaders, the ones typically that come in and say you have this pain and I can solve it for you. One and one alone. Malone further explained, then they will follow that person. It doesn't matter whether they lied to them or whatever. The data is irrelevant. Let's see. A leader lying to followers and making data irrelevant? Has that ever happened in the U.S.? Have political leaders ever actually lied? Speaking of the U.S., Malone next connected all of this with America, asserting that we had all those conditions. If you remember back before 2019, everyone was complaining, the world doesn't make sense and we are all isolated from each other. So Malone seemed to be painting a not-so-happy picture of the U.S. circa 2019. Indeed, on March 22, 2019, Christopher Ingram wrote for The Washington Post an article entitled, Americans are getting more miserable, and there's data to prove it, citing data from the World Happiness Report and the General Social Survey. But back to 2021 and Malone's interview. Then this thing happened, and everyone focused on it, stated Malone without specifying what exactly this thing or it was. That is how mass formation psychosis happens, and that is what has happened here.